Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's session, we will dive into conditional statements in context of bash scripting. In Linux, there are several conditional statements which exist, which allows us to make specific decision based on the conditions which are there. There can be if else, case statements, and more. Knowledge in conditional statements, especially in bash scripting, is useful to make decisions, especially in crucial scenarios whenever you are implementing automation, error handling, user interaction, or monitoring system health. So yeah, let's get started. For the demonstration, I'll be using Vim or VI editor, so you can use the most preferred choice as you wish. So we are right now in a script basically named at if.sh. In this script I will be demonstrating the syntactical structure of if statement which bash usually follows. So we will go into insert mode. We will import our bin bash, which is used to import the bash interpreter into your file. So yeah, the basic syntactical structure of any conditional statement to be evaluated using if would look something like this. So yeah, your structure would look somewhat like this. So here you would have the condition specified within square brackets, followed by the code to be executed here, and you would always close your condition, especially in context of if, with fi at the end. So yeah, this is the structure. Always recall your conditions or should always be separated by a space from the square braces. You basically have a semicolon ending the condition, followed by the then keyword, which is to indicate we will be executing this specific set of code in between if and fi, as long as this specific condition is satisfied. So yeah, let's try to implement a structure within this if statement to check if a specific number is positive. So let's just say an example where we would check for a positive number. Yeah, so something like this. Let's say we will read that specific data. Let's say we will prompt the user to enter a number, and yeah, we will basically store it into a variable called num, and here we will basically set up our if conditional statement, which would basically say if $num is greater than 0, then we will basically write, wait a minute to go back into insert mode. Yeah, sometimes it does that. So if it is greater than 0, then we basically would ask, then we will basically print out the value echo $num is a positive numerical value, something like this, and then we will close this specific condition. So in order to execute this, you will always have to check your permissions list. Once you hit enter, you can see that we do not have executor added into it, so we basically give, let's just say for the user, we basically add execution privilege, and then we basically clear. You can check, and you can see that we are now able to execute. We can also do bash instead of doing chmod, directly skipping it, but it's usually a better idea to give the modification beforehand. Yeah, and as expected, we can just enter, let's say 42, and yeah, you can see that the condition basically evaluated that the value was greater than 0, and thus we got a positive number. But this structure is still not complete, because if we give some other number like -1, this will not give an output, because we are not handling for that specific kind of an outcome. So yeah, this is a very basic implementation, but it can be used for other basic conditional checking, especially within system scripts, to check if a service is running. So yeah, let's see if we can modify this a little bit with an if else statement to basically consider different code blocks to be executed based on the conditionality. So let's just go back to our let's just go back to our if statement, and let's just modify this to have an else as well. So let's say here we are anyway evaluating the value of number to be, if it is greater than 0, then we basically give out a numerical number which is positive. So we can also give something as else. So here we would basically write else, and we would echo out the information that if the above condition is not met, effectively what it means that number is a negative number or something, numerical value, and we will do something like this: write and quit, hit enter. In this case, when we add -1 and hit enter, you can see that our script was fully equipped to handle for that specific scenario. Now we can go ahead and do something more interesting. Let's say we can perform a conditional check for even and odd numbers. Let's just write something even odd .sh. Yeah, I'm going to insert mode. We will write bin bash into our file. We will basically read -p. So yeah, we'll just make that small correction, enter a number. We will basically ask the user for a number, and then we will basically set up the same structure as before, but here we would be evaluating whether the number is odd or even. So here our values, especially for conditional checking, need to be enclosed within double parentheses. So here our num value, if it is divisible by 2 and the output for this specific evaluation is equal to 0, then we will print out, let's say something like this: $num is even. Some message like this. And now we can also perform the same with the help of the else. We will write echo $num is odd. And yeah, we will just close it with fi. Yeah, so we can just write and quit and write bash even odd.sh. It will prompt me for a number, and for example, if I give like 8, and when I hit enter, it basically performs the process of finding out if the remainder of this specific operation, if it is equal to 0, and if that evaluation is satisfied, it will print out this specific statement along with the number. Let's say if I add 7 into this as an input, and you will see that we basically are able to also satisfactorily counter for that specific input as well because of our else statement. So yeah, these were just binary conditional checking, but let's say if we want to check for multiple conditions, we would basically implement an elif statement. So for that, the basic structure, we can write it as, let's say, multi-condition, let's say something like this, and let's go into our input. Let's just do bin/bash. So yeah, in this case, as before, our condition would be within square braces, and then we will write then our condition, let's say the code which needs to be executed if condition 1 is true. Yeah, so this is what happens, and here we would write elif for our condition 2, which would be then evaluated, and if it is successful, the code to be executed. If, let's say, code if condition 2 is true. So yeah, and yeah, finally an else statement to evaluate the most likely code to be executed if none of the conditions are met. If none of the conditions are met, something like this. And yeah, then you finally close the entire structure. So let's say we can basically modify this structure in context of, let's say, evaluating temperature. Let's say if the temperature is above 30 or equal to 30, we will say it's a very warm day or hot day, and if the temperature is greater than 20, then we can say it's warm, else it is cold. Some basic structure like that. Let's just take an input from the reader, the user. So we can just say, let's just ask the user in degrees Celsius, something like this, and let's just write this into this variable called temp. We will basically check the first condition, that if $temp is greater than or equal to, so here we are checking for greater than or equal to 30 degrees Celsius, then we basically would print out, let's say, echo it's warm. Or okay, here we will just write let's say it's a hot day or something. Okay, not a hot day but a hot day. So yeah, let's now just set up the second statement. Let's say if the $temperature is greater than or equal to, let's say, 20. But yeah, this is not really a confusing statement. It would be if we just leave it like that. So we can, because the condition here, let's say if the temperature is 40, then here both statements might get executed. So this is not really a good way to do so. So for that we can do some other let's say structure formation in here. So here we can evaluate two conditions at once by writing an and symbol. For that you put double ampersand symbol, and you will basically write the temperature. Let's say if it is greater than 20, something like this. If it is greater than 20, or let's say greater than or equal to 20, okay, let's say if it is less than, let's say less than 30 and the temperature is somewhat like it's greater than or equal to 20, then we will basically get if it's a warm day. Else we will just simply write echo, we will just message it as it's awfully cold. So yeah, it's always a good thing to just eliminate or end your statements with a semicolon. Sometimes you will not get that error, but depending on your version or distribution of Linux, it's better to always follow the syntax structure. So yeah, let's just write and quit this. Let's just do the multi condition. Let's say in this scenario we basically give an input of 32, and you hit enter, it just says it's a hot day. But yeah, let's just try to do like maybe 25, and it's a warm day. Or if we just enter let's say 15, and it's an awfully cold day. You can just see that there's a small typo, but yeah, you get the idea. So that's how you basically go about implementing a multi if statement structure. You can also follow up with other symbols like string comparisons, which can also be performed with the help of other comparison operators, such as the assignment operator. Okay, let me just see. Yeah, the assignment operator, the not equal to operator, and let's say the string is empty operator, and then like -n, which is the string is not empty operator. So yeah, there are different ways of doing so. So let's say we would like to implement a login system which basically looks for a username, and based on that it will evaluate whether this is an admin or not. So we will just maybe let's say we will just print out an an echo statement in a simple state in a mail, which will basically check for that. So yeah, let's just clear our workspace and let's just go into VI. Let's set up a login system. That's in a simple login system, not very complex. And yeah, let's just import our bin bash again. And yeah, let's just read some username value. Let's just say enter a username. Okay, let's just make it a little bit interesting to look at. So let's just take this value into username. Yeah, and then we can basically use the if condition as before, and we can write if $username matches admin. We will just basically evaluate if it is matching this term called admin. Then we will basically echo out the statement access has been granted. Let's just do the same with else. Hence we can basically give out a basic structural message asking that access is not provided or provision has been denied. And yeah, let's just close this and we will move on. And yeah, so we can just bash login system. Let's say if I write John or something else, you will get this message. Let's say if you write admin, then it will basically give out the expected message accordingly. So yeah, this is a basic authentication script. When it comes to CLI applications, you can use that, especially in context of string matching. Another way of determining or using conditions would be to check if certain files exist. For that we can also use the if else condition for the same purpose. So let's try to basically check whether a specific file exists or not. Let's just try to use one of the existing files. For that, let's just create a file. Let's say file check .sh. Into insert mode, we basically again bring in our bin bash. Basically we'll read, take an input from the user to enter a file name. So, and we basically would store that information into file name. Here we would later check if, with a conditional statement, if -e, this specific file string, which is a string name, we basically use -e to check if the specific file exists. If it exists, then we basically would echo out the information, the file. Let's just give it out like file name, the name of the file, which is the name which will appear here, does indeed exist. Let's do that, and yeah, always close it with a semicolon. We'll just again write echo else. We will write echo $file name does not exist. Then we basically will close this, and yeah, let's just move on. And yeah, we'll just, let's say in our file system we have a bunch of files. Let's just try with the first even odd.sh file. So yeah, we can just try to do that. We will basically write bash file check.sh. We will give in the name even odd.sh, hit enter. So yeah, you can see that this script basically would check for that specific file in your present working directory. Note that this specific file, since we have by default created it within the same directory along with the files that we intend to check it with, they have to be in the same location, else you will have to specify the specific directory. Yeah, so this is one way to basically perform a checking process in order to perform an analysis on backup files once a backup script has been executed. You can also do the same with a case statement in bash. So the case statement is used to perform conditional assessments whenever multiple choices of conditions might exist. So it basically takes in a variable, and we basically would check uh, based on that, like if you want to perform multiple conditional assessments. So yeah, we can do that, but for that, let's say if we want a menu based script system which can perform an n number of let's say commands to be executed. So here we can basically do the same with the help of the case statement. So let's just clear our workspace ls. We will create vi. Let's just write case.sh. Yeah, so we will do something of the same. Okay, sorry, bin bash. So yeah, let's just say echo, and let's say select an option. So here we will give in a term. Let's just say the first command, if you enter 1, we basically, let's say if you type in 1, we basically would be displaying the date. So these are just messages that we are just giving in beforehand for the user to choose from. So here we will say list files. We'll just write something like this. Let's say show disk usage. Else we can do something like this. Let's say exit. Yeah, something like this. We will basically take in an input from the user to enter something like this. Let's try some structure like this. Yeah, so here we are basically taking the choice, which are the numbers. And yeah, here since we have multiple options which have been presented, we basically would write case followed by the variable name followed by the number. If it is 1, 2, 3, 4, so on, we can basically give in like let's say date. Let's just try something like this. Yep, sorry, structure as ls-l like df -h. We'll give a exit. Simply we will exit, and let's say if any other term is inserted, we would basically exit out with the statement invalid choice. Finish this, and we will write the same as before. As we use if statements, we always close it with fi. Here this entire thing has to be specified in a reverse statement. And yeah, so this is how this will look like. We basically write and quit, we move on, and basically write bash case.sh. So yeah, if I press 1 here, the first option is basically matched, and based on that, date command is basically executed. We can do the same process with the other commands as well, so we can try all those options as well, and they will just work fine. If we write, let's say, option which is not provided, so that specific statement, if it is not matching any of the other numerical values from 1 to 4, then the last option would be by default printed. So yeah, this is an interactive way to basically make a system management script. So as before, we can try to combine and or into our scripts and commands. So the basic structure of AND basically involves command 1 followed by AND operator followed by the second command, command 2. Here the structure basically involves two commands. The command number 2 only undergoes execution upon the successful execution of the previous command number 1. So yeah, let's try to demo this with a simple combination of commands. Let's say mkdir new directory, and let's just wait a minute, mkdir new directory, and we basically move into that new directory. And once you hit enter, you can see that we have effectively created the new directory, and upon successful creation of this new directory, we basically executed the secondary command which allowed us to move into that next new directory. You can also use OR in a similar fashion, whereby which you will basically have a command structure which basically involves command 1 or command 2. So this would be the case here. The second command runs only if the first command fails. It's a non-zero exist status, so let's just try to move into a non-existing, let's say, directory. If that directory doesn't exist, we basically will print out echo the directory is absent. And once we hit enter, you can see that we found our secondary command executing despite the first command failing. So that's another way of combining commands. We can also try to create a command structure which involves the use of both AND and OR. So let's draw something like mkdir testdir followed by an AND structure, and we will just basically move into that test directory. Once that has been done, we will basically move into echo, and just, if it is unsuccessful, we will basically print out echo. We can say fail to change into the directory. Once this has been done, we can hit enter, and you can see that since our first command successfully was able to execute, this secondary command will be ignored, and yeah, you can see that we are within the test directory. So yeah, this is one way to work with this system. Yeah, let's just move back one more level up. Ls, we will clear our workspace. Yeah, let's just write a new condition.sh. Yeah, and let's just say if always remember to import your bash. Let's just write if my directory, just write and -w into my directory. So yeah, this command structure basically will check if my dir exists and if it is writable. So let's just try to execute this. So yeah, so you can see that since this particular directory doesn't exist, we will never see an output. So yeah, let's just try to make a change in that regards. Let's just create this directory and then just write this. So yeah, you can see that this directory, since we just created with the same name, we can see that our condition has been able to execute. So yeah, that's another way of using conditions with and or statements.